Hey y'all, it's Kim. So I know it's been a few weeks since I've been on here, but I am still thinking of the Jeffrey Epstein saga. Anyway, this is one of the documents in the DOJ file. I don't remember which set it was in, maybe five or six. Could have been seven. I've looked at so many different ones. But this is called Operation Leap Year. This is United States District Court, Southern District of Florida, West Palm Beach Division. So, of course, this is a grand jury, uh, what do you call it? Deposition kind of thing or testimony, whatever it's called. But this is grand jury, the West Palm Beach, Florida, Tuesday, February 6, 2007. So, this is still kind of in the thick of everything, at least with the whole sweetheart deal and him going to jail for 13 months and then he was able to go home at night and all the other stuff. And this is also probably during the time whenever he was having all the issues with the, well, like the, I think it was Royal Palm Beach High School or something like that. I think there was a bunch of students, the girls that were coming from there. And anyway, yeah, I was listening to a podcast earlier about this stuff. So it's just like, it just kind of refreshed. But anyway, so this is testimony of redacted. It says assistant U.S. attorney and the foreperson and the court reporter. So all these names have been redacted. And then official reporting something. Oh, yeah, official reporting service. And then whatever's there redacted. And this has 22 pages. It says proceedings, the sworn testimony of redacted. The redacted was taken before the federal grand jury, West Palm Beach Division, 701 Clematis Street, West, I guess as they say it, West Palm Beach, Palm Beach County, state of Florida, on the 6th day of February 2007. Redacted register of merit reporter. A notary public was authorized to and did report the sworn testimony. Thereupon, redacted, a witness of lawful age, having been first duly sworn by the foreperson, testified on her oath as follows by Miss Redacted. And then special agent, redacted, please state and spell your name for the record. It is redacted. And I work for the FBI in Palm Beach County. Can you spell your last name, please? I'm sorry, it is, and then she spells it out. Redacted. And I know we have some people in the back having trouble hearing you. You said that you work for the FBI. Can you tell the grand jury what particular group you are employed with? It says I'm with the Violent Crime Squad here in, hold on, Palm Beach County. I work primarily crimes against children, but have been an agent for the last approximately 10 years. Have you received specialized training in the areas of crime against children? Yes, I have. As part of your employment with the FBI, have you been involved in an investigation of Jeffrey Epstein? Yes, I have. And can you tell us who Jeffrey Epstein is? Jeffrey Epstein is an investment advisor who has a part-time residence in the town of Palm Beach. He's got multiple residences across the country, to include a ranch in New Mexico, an island in the Virgin Isles, and multiple aircrafts, 2 airplanes, and a helicopter, to be exact. Okay, and where is his primary residence? His primary residence, he has an office in New York, but his primary residence, I believe, is the islands. In the Virgin Islands? Yes. He also has a home in New York, correct? Yes. How is it that you started investigating Mr. Epstein? The Palm Beach Police Department in March of 2005 initiated an investigation on Mr. Epstein involving multiple underage females that had visited Mr. Epstein's residence and had performed sexual massages or massages for Mr. Epstein for a sexual nature. Mr. Epstein paid the underage females anywhere from $200 to $400. That investigation was around an 8 to 10 month investigation. And at that point, we became involved in and about July of 2006. And once the case was presented to you by the Palm Beach Police Department, did the FBI open its own investigation? Yes, yes. We initiated our investigation in July of 2006. We took a look at focusing in on the underage minors. And in our investigation, we interviewed many of the girls that were underage, and we did an independent investigation issuing grand jury subpoenas as well as administrative subpoenas, getting different documents of financial records, telephone analysis, flight manifests, looking to see if Mr. Epstein engaged in sexual activity with these females. All right. And just so the grand jury is clear, were some of the girls who went to Mr. Epstein's house 18 or older? The question of the hour. Okay, it says yes. And then there were some that were under the age of 18, correct? Yes. And as part of the federal investigation, did you have to investigate what we call the interstate nexus aspect of the case? Yes. And can you explain to the grand jury what that is? We looked at Mr. Epstein, as I mentioned earlier, has two aircrafts, and we focused in on the year 2004, 2005. He took approximately 60 trips to his residence in Palm Beach. The majority of that time focusing in on his assistant's cell phone, which his assistant's name is redacted. It's probably Leslie Groff, one of them. I know. Anyway, it says we took a look at her cell phone records, and the majority of the times that Mr. Epstein would fly into Palm Beach, Mrs. or Miss redacted would contact many of our underage victims either prior to coming into Palm Beach, the day of, the day before, even the day after, and certainly throughout the time that Mr. Epstein was at his residence in Palm Beach. And from the interviews of the girls that have been conducted, what was the subject of those telephone calls? Can you restate the question? Sure. From the interviews of the girls that have been conducted, what was the subject matter of the telephone calls from Redacted? Redacted would schedule the underage girls to come and work, perform the massages for Mr. Epstein. So she was responsible. She, as well as another assistant, Redacted. They were his personal assistants who would set up appointments for Mr. Epstein for the girls to come and perform their sexual massages. All right. Is Redacted also considered a target of this investigation? Yes, she is. And that could be Haley Robeson, too. She was, I think, one of them, but there were some other, I think there was like 3 or 4 of them. Okay, anyway, sorry. Yes, she is, and I will spell redacted for the grand jury. The first name is redacted, and the last name is spelled redacted. And does Miss Redacted have a new last name? Yes, she does. She's married, and her name is Redacted. So redacted. Is Miss Redacted at least a subject of this investigation? In other words, you're investigating her activity. We're looking at that. We're looking at that. Sorry. Sorry. I got confused. In addition to those 2 assistants from the interviews of the girls, is there anyone else who is associated with Mr. Epstein who is thought to be involved in this activity? Redacted has been referred to as his companion, girlfriend, personal assistant. She, through the testimony of the girls, has engaged in sexual activity at least 3 of the underage minors. I don't know if that's that Marcinkova girl, but anyway. But if we're talking about 2004 and 5, that could have been Ghislaine too. So why would her name be removed? Whatever. And redacted is redacted. So Miss Redacted is also at least a subject of the investigation, correct? Yes, she is. Now, as part of this investigation, you mentioned that subpoenas were issued on behalf of either the old grand jury or this grand jury. And can you run through what subpoenas have been issued and what documents have been received in response to that? Sure. We issued a grand jury subpoena to Colonial Bank and we received financial records on credit card accounts and individuals. We subpoenaed Washington Mutual and they did a search and were able to locate records at this time. We issued a grand jury subpoena for Capital One and served that. And that is still unresolved at this time as far as them providing documents to us. We've subpoenaed Chase credit card and we've received documents from Chase. We've subpoenaed 2 businesses that Mr. Epstein has at least partial ownership or associated to, Hyperion Air Inc. and JEGE Inc. They are issued subpoenas and they have provided documentation to us. And we subpoenaed Mr. Redacted, who is a pilot of Mr. Epstein's, and we've received documentation from Mr. Redacted. We've subpoenaed DTG Operations, who is doing business as Dollar Rental Car, and we have received car rental agreements and financial records from that business. We've subpoenaed Royal Palm Beach High School. That's the school. Yes, I remember that because I went through a whole video on that. So anyway, we have subpoenaed Royal Palm Beach High School and received documentation regarding the students' records. We have subpoenaed 3 or 4 of the victims, redacted being the first. That could be Virginia, but it could be wrong. And we've received a bathing suit from redacted. What? We issued a grand jury subpoena to redacted. We actually have issued redacted 3 subpoenas, and we're still working on resolving her grand jury material as well as testimony. We've received redacted a subpoena. We've issued, she also is one of the underage victims. We've issued Reimer Employment Agency as grand jury subpoena, and we've received documentation that is an employment agency located on the island of Palm Beach. We've subpoenaed the Palm Beach Police Department for their evidence in this case, and we received that. By the way, that is the only thing that I did not bring with me today. I brought everything else, but it is rather a lot of evidence, so we will probably be bringing that to you another time. And I don't know if y'all remember Joseph or Carey. He was like the main detective, and I think he's since passed away, but I mean, he was like instrumental in, a lot of this investigation in the Palm Beach Police Department. Anyway, just throwing that in there. I don't know if his name will be mentioned, but just in case. And then says we've issued the clerk of courts of the state of Florida for grand jury transcripts in the state matter, and we've received those. We've issued the Good Samaritan Hospital for billing records, and we've received those. We've issued a grand jury subpoena to the Dalton School located in New York, and at this time they do not have the records we've requested or could not locate those because it's probably been too many years. Because this was what, 2007? Yeah, and that was back in the 80s, so I doubt they'd have them. It says we've issued a grand jury subpoena to Extra Touch Flowers located here in Palm Beach, and we've received documentation from them. We issued a grand jury subpoena to Bill Hammond, another pilot for Mr. Epstein. We've spoken with him. And then it says we've issued a grand jury subpoena to redacted another another one of Mr. Epstein's pilots, and we've received documentation as well as spoken to him. We've issued a grand jury subpoena to redacted, who is the property manager currently for Mr. Epstein at his Palm Beach residence, and we've received documentation as well as spoken to him. And we've issued a grand jury subpoena to redacted and received some documentation or still waiting a response. Now, you mentioned that you didn't bring with you the evidence that you received from the Palm Beach Police Department, but did you bring with you all of the other evidence that was received in response to the subpoenas? I have. And is that evidence in the 2 boxes that are here in the front? Yes. We will bring all this back to you when we present the indictment. But would anyone like to look at any of the documentation today? In a grand jury, what does the documentation constitute? Basically, the subpoenas, the witness. It is primarily business records, flight manifests, stuff that came from him traveling to and from Palm Beach, credit card records, the businesses as far as the rental agreement, which involves some of the underage girls with the rental cars and flower shop, and then grand juror. Will we have an opportunity later to go through these if we need to? Redacted. Yes, we will bring them when we present the indictment. Yes, ma'am. A grand juror. If I should hold this for later, let me know. She mentioned the hospital records were subpoenaed. Could more information about what they were subpoenaed be provided at this time? And then by Miss Redacted. You can answer that. One of the girls that was underage at the time, is involved with Mr. Epstein, has had a baby. Whoa, whoa. I knew something about that, but I wasn't sure. And it says we were interested in wondering if possibly he was the father of that baby, which at this time we do not believe he was. Oh, okay. So what she's doing. Yeah. Okay. I was like, grand juror, thank you. Misredacted, a question. The grand juror, did the flight manifest show passengers on the plane? The witness, yes, they do. A grand juror, were any of the passengers the underage girls that were a target of the investigation? The witness, at this time, we have not associated any of these underage girls as being the passengers. The flight manifest, sometimes the pilot, if they did not know who the passenger was, would put one passenger or one female, one male. These were private planes, and they, may not have felt like they can go up and ask, but we don't have any evidence at this time to believe if they were any of our victims. Misredacted. Any follow up? Any other questions from the grand jury? Yes, ma'am. The grand juror, the records that you subpoenaed from the high school, what were they used for and why were they instrumental in the investigation? I have one thought. There was one of the girls that I think somebody started making fun of her because she had a bunch of money in her purse and they called her a prostitute or something. I remember reading that during that Royal Palm Beach High School article that I don't remember who, I think it's a Palm Beach Herald or something. Anyway, I have a video on that, but whatever. It says the witness, those are the girls' school records, and we're just looking at this girls' records. Uh, Granger, absenteeism, the witness just looking at some of their grades and performances and how they did in school. Misredacted. Ladies and gentlemen, before we continue, the witness has mentioned a few names of the minors, and that is confidential information. Obviously, everything that you hear within these walls is confidential. And then redacted. Now, Special Agent redacted after, in addition to issuing the subpoenas, you mentioned that one of the subpoenas was to the Palm Beach Police Department. Did you review any of that evidence that they collected? Yes. And can you, for example, did the Palm Beach Police Department interview any girls? Yes, they did. I'm gonna have a video on that, just so you know. Just you'll have to go through the whole Epstein thing. Maybe you can start it from the top and then go down, but whatever. Okay, yes, they did. They interviewed several of the girls. Most of the girls, they took tape statements from the girls, either in the form of a tape recorder or through video. And there were several videos I was able to find. And you have reviewed some of these or some of those interviews, correct? Yes, we have. And has the FBI performed any interviews? Yes, we have. We've performed interviews of past and current employees of Mr. Epstein, as well as focusing in on the girls that were underage at the time of the sexual activity. We wanted to determine with these girls, again, the sexual activity that took place with Mr. Epstein, as well as how old they were at the time. If they traveled with Mr. Epstein, any gifts that they may have gotten. So, do we reach out to several of the underage minors and gather more information from them? Oh, so we did, excuse me. Yeah, so we did reach out. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I screwed that up. We can't read it too fast. Okay. And did the FBI's investigation, has the FBI identified additional victims that perhaps the state police officers did not know about? Yes. We're still trying to identify, get first names of girls and going back and looking through school yearbooks and attempting to try to locate friends of friends. So we're still in the process. When you interview one of the girls and you ask if any of their friends went, they sometimes will give you other names. So we're in the process of still uncovering victims and reaching out and interviewing additional girls that we believe possibly were underage at the time of this sexual activity. If I could ask you to step outside, and then the witness was excused, blah, 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 questions posed by the grand jury. The witness was recalled to testify before the grand jury, and then the attorney. It says Special Agent redacted. One of the grand jurors asked whether there was any evidence of force, hold on, or coercion. And then we're talking to the girls. They were told that they may have to, they were going there to perform a massage, possibly model lingerie. They went there sometimes on multiple occasions and they may start off wearing their clothing, and then he would instruct them, redacted, to basically get undressed. As far as conversion, they were paid $200 to $400 to perform these massages. And if you know anything about what they were talking about, he would use like a little vibrator, or he would touch them just in the general area. I don't think he actually did the deed, if you know what I mean. But that's not all of them. I don't think he was that kind on a lot of occasions, just from what I've heard. But anyway, we're just gonna go on. So it says they're not trained in performing massages. They don't. They're not masseuses, but yet, if you ask if they were coerced, they were paid quite a bit of money for 30 to 45 minutes of work. Some of the girls, being that they were minors, going to his residence, got in over their heads and did not always return or come back. Some of our victims did come back after, they did go down to their redacted. Um, I'm sure they were trying to get their friends to come. That's what one of the girls even said. Oh, shoot. Hold on. Where am I going? Okay. Yeah. The page went kind of haywire here. Okay. And was there one instance where Mr. Epstein actually engaged in vaginal intercourse with the girl against her will and redacted? And then a grand juror asked how old Mr. Epstein is. He was 45 at the time that we're looking at him at that time period. The grand juror asked if you know the proportion of girls who were underage versus 18 or older. The majority of the girls that we are looking at are all, or excuse me, at our victims. Well, all of our victims that we are looking at were under the age of 18. I think they were anywhere from 14 to 16. Just saying. So let's go on. As far as all of the girls that have been interviewed, the majority definitely were under 18. To give you a number, I would have to go and count. But I would say in the state investigation, there were over 25 girls identified, and more than a majority would have been under the age of 18. A grand juror asked whether we have obtained Mr. Epstein's DNA and whether there was any DNA testing of the baby that you spoke of earlier. No, we have not. A grand juror asked how Mr. Epstein will make contact with the girls, and was this done via computer or in some other method? It says, I'm sorry, redacted. His personal assistant would contact, or on some occasions, redacted would also contact the girls via their cell phone. And we have message pads from the residents that also indicate the girls calling the home in response to some of those phone calls. So they would call redacted. Redacted would call. The majority of the calls were made by redacted to the girls, arranging for these, can you come at this time? Can you come at that time? And is a cellular telephone a facility of interstate commerce? Yes, it is. And then one of the grand jurors asked whether the assistants knew that the girls were underage or committed sex acts. Ew. Did anybody have you interview? It's coming. Did anybody have you interviewed anybody who affirmatively told you that they told redacted their age and what was going on behind closed doors? No, no, not at this time. Not at this time. And what leads you to believe that she, for example, redacted, knew or should have known what was going on? There are so many girls that redacted contacted to give Mr. Epstein massages that have no training in massages. And that redacted was aware that girls were bringing other friends, or excuse me, other girls, their friends to these massages. Redacted was also making appointments for legitimate massages for Mr. Epstein from legitimate masseuses that would come and give him massages. So the number of girls, their appearances at the time, would lead us to believe that Redacted had knowledge that these girls were underage. All right, thank you very much. Those were all the questions from the grand jury. The grand jury actually have two more, but okay. The grand jury, what was the actual age range of these girls? The witness 14 to, a grand juror. The other one was, how did Miss Redacted actually originally get these girls? How were they brought in? I mean, how were they, because you said she called them when he was arriving, but how did these girls come into this in the first place? A Granger, could you speak louder? Miss Redacted or whatever, Special Agent Redacted, we just had a request that you speak louder. A Granger at 14 and what? The witness, our victims were 14 to 17, but we have girls that are 18, we have girls that are 20, we have girls that are in their early 20s. And your question was, the Granger, how did she originally get them in the first place? The witness, we're focusing in on 2004, 2005. We have some evidence to show that this activity was taking place even earlier than that, certainly to include 2003 if you look at the message pads, but focusing in on 2004, 2005, the chain started with one of our minors, and from that minor who goes to the house, Mr. Epstein tells her, sees that she's maybe not comfortable with doing the massage. That may be the one that's Haley Robeson. Just saying, it's that one, or there was one I listened to today. She didn't mention this, but there was a girl named Jenna Lisa Jones or something like that. I don't know if that was her. It was somebody like that that was uncomfortable and then brought friends. Okay, anyway, doing the massage the way he would like it, and tells her that she could bring other girls to do the massages. And she, in fact, if she brought another girl, she would be paid $200 for just bringing another girl. So there starts the chain, and Mr. Epstein would ask the girls, or Redacted would ask the girls for their phone numbers. So each time, if one of the girls brought a girl and he liked her, he would ask her for her phone number, ask her to leave the phone number, or Redacted would get the phone number, and then that girl would maybe bring, because if you brought somebody, you didn't have to do the massage, but you also got paid for bringing a new person. So not only if you did the massage would you get anywhere from $200 to $400, but if you brought a new female, you would receive $200 or $400. That's pretty lucrative for kids from the wrong side of the tracks. Because I think that's even something that that girl mentioned on it was on the Chris Hansen podcast, Take a Seat or Have a Seat or something like that. Anyway, I mean, that was 5 days ago, but anyway, I watch a lot of podcasts, just so you know. A grand juror, do you know how she solicited that original minor? That's the key. I wonder how the heck this all happened. It says the witness. I don't. Well, I know that minor was approached by two individuals, and we have been, interviewed one of those individuals, who we can connect back to Mr. Epstein 4 years, possibly prior to this, and stated that his job was actually to drive some of the girls to the residence. And that's pretty much where we start off. Mr. Redacted, would the grand jury like Special Agent Redacted to maintain the records that we've received in response to the subpoenas? A grand jury, a grand juror says maintain versus what? A grand juror, what is our choice? Misredacted. I don't know that there is. I guess I could maintain them, but I don't believe we have secure storage in here. Would you like Special Agent Redacted to maintain custody? The Granger, yes. Miss Redacted, you should have something to swear her in as a custodian. Um, the witness was sworn in as a custodian of the records, and then Mr. Redacted, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the last person for today. So you guys are free to go, and we will see you probably in a couple of weeks. We'll be seeing a lot of you. And the witness was excused from the grand jury room. Testimony of the witness concluded before the grand jury. And then this is just the certification page. Nothing exciting there. This was May of, oh, that's her commission. She's a notary republic. Anyway, so Operation Leap Year, like I didn't even know this was a thing. I guess I didn't realize they had like this whole investigation of Epstein, but hey, I mean, gotta start somewhere. But yes, again, Operation Leap Year, investigating Jeffrey Epstein. I guess in the initial phases, right before he went to day jail. Anyway, I will talk to y'all later. I'll keep trying to do these videos. I've just had a lot of stuff going on a few weeks, and so anyway, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye. 4 quick things. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. That'll really, really help me out. Anyway, talk to y'all later. Bye.